Hi there, welcome once again. As much as this crop is highly valued out there are quite a number of challenges that farmers are facing in growing this Hass avocado tree, and also the tips on how you can really avoid them. One, this tree, Hass avocado, is very fragile. It's a very sensitive tree right from the seedling. Once you have it, you have to make sure that you handle it well, especially during transportation. Ensure that it's not getting a lot of winds. It will end up drying quite easily. Even when you're trying to remove it from the point A to point B in the garden to transplant and plant it, please be very careful. It's very sensitive and dies off easily. And that's one of the frustrations farmers are going through with this particular crop. Now, at the second point, it is a tree that is greatly affected by termites. And that is a very, very big challenge to farmers out here. I've been able to lose quite a lot of trees on this particular farm and can actually be demoralizing. Remember, it's a very expensive tree. It costs around 8,000 shillings to buy a particular seedling. But imagine planting, even after 1 year or 2 years, it can easily dry off when it is attacked by the ants. Ants really like it, and that makes it a very big problem for this tree. It requires sufficient amounts of rainfall or amounts of water to be able to grow. It feeds quite heavily and really requires significant amount of water. So it is best to plant at the onset of the rainy season. But remember, when we've planted it, it will keep on raining. After 1 month, also, you find that there are prolonged periods of sunshine in a particular rainy season. So if you don't take effort to try and water this crop, it will start even drying during the rainy season. So it requires constant volumes of certain amounts to be able to keep it healthy. So we advise that even out there, as you go about planting this crop, if you notice that it has been shining for, say, 3 consecutive weeks or coming to the 4th, make arrangements of watering even during the rainy season. It's even worse when it comes to the dry season. You have to make sure that you put in effort and arrangements for irrigating these plants if you are to harvest. So it requires significant amounts of rainfall. Then also does not need a lot of digging at the base. Remember, avocado trees have shallow roots, and they really move along almost at the surface, just around the circumference of the canopy. So even when you're weeding, you're not supposed to put a hoe and you try to dig a little bit. First of all, you create a mold when you're planting it. But when you're weeding, try as much as possible to use your hands to remove these weeds that are around it. There, you'll make sure that you're not disorganizing or tampering with the root system. It will keep on feeding very well. So it's a crop that has a lot of feeding roots that are quite shallow, almost at the surface. And therefore, if you put a hoe, you can greatly damage it, and therefore it can be quite frustrating for the farmer. Also, much as it works well and grows well both in the cooler environment and the hotter areas, it is greatly affected by intense heat, especially if you have prolonged dry spells and you are not providing irrigation. It really gets affected quite heavily. You'll find when the leaves are beginning to wrinkle, meaning that it is getting a lot of stress as a result of lacking sufficient amounts of water. And therefore it can be quite frustrating coming to the garden and you find you losing such a crop. And remember, once it starts fading and losing out like that, it's very, very hard to rejuvenate it. So it's important that as you plan to plant this crop on your farm, ensure that you have sufficient sources of water, maybe near the river, streams, or you can sink your own borehole and be able to, look after this tree. And make sure that you do enough mulching around the tree. That's very, very key. Once you've created a mold, you can also create a hollow section around the tree. Remember, even if water fills there, because it's a mold, the excess water will always drift away, sink off, and it will remain with what is sufficient to help it grow. And normally that is what we recommend to be able to look after this crop properly. Finally, the 6th point is that it is can be quite a stubborn fruit tree, especially when it is still young. If you want it to start giving you fruit at 2.5 years to 3 years, you normally have to plant trees that have been grafted. Now, it has a tendency of having the rootstock getting a lot of growth just below the grafting point. So if you want it to grow healthily, ensure to check routinely. Either after 2 weeks or monthly, come into your orchard, check through below the grafting point and remove that growth that is beneath to help it grow. Otherwise, you'll find that growth that is growing below the grafting point will tend to be more vigorous than the grafted part and can easily overtake this Hass avocado. And if you're not careful, you'll end up having a different variety which is not Hass avocado on your farm. So it's important to monthly check the growth below the grafting point and eliminate, cut off gently all that is below the grafting point, and you'll maintain a very healthy orchard. So these are some of the key pointers that I wanted to let you know, the major challenges affecting Hass avocado farmers, and I request you to kindly look at that keenly if you're to have a healthy crop. Thank you so much. If you consider this helpful, please let us know. Subscribe, press the notification bell, and share it with colleagues so that they can be able to learn more, especially at this point when we are still at the takeoff season or years when people are just trying to adopt growing the Hass avocado. Thank you very much.